from Jake. This is a long one, so I've shortened it a little. This might have to be the last one. Michael, I'm a big fan, a subscriber, and I consider this important. What exactly are you thinking with this idiotic discussion on gays? First of all, your discussion with Father Michael Schmitz wasn't about gay marriage. It was about how gay people should find strength in Jesus to stay chaste. Now, I don't know how much understanding of what the conservative movement has been through on this, but I was fighting for gay rights in the GOP when you were in middle school. From a purely political point of view, quite literally no decision by the GOP has been more damaging to conservatives than the decision to be hateful and discriminatory to gays. And make no mistake, that is what they were: hateful, discriminatory, unsympathetic. The massive tide in favor of gay rights did not take place because we all decided to feel instead of think. Genius. It took place because gay people finally felt safe to begin coming out and naming themselves by the millions. For decades, even centuries, most people didn't think they knew a gay person. Suddenly they were shown that they did, and it's a lot harder to be hateful to a group if you find out that your brother, best friend, or boss, or favorite employee is a member. So the tide turned. Listening to Father Schmitz, I felt like I was back in the 90s or early 2000s. All those ancient days in the 2000s, talking to someone about this subject. Idiotic statements like chastity can be fun and friendships are great, coming out of the mouth of a person who chooses to be chaste for God and somehow manages to think that calling falls on people like me. Well, Mr. Knowles, I suggest you do some more research. If you would like to understand more about a sane, all caps, position on this, I'm a conservative libertarian, Gen Xer, openly gay, and begging you not to go down this road. Every new argument about how it's not hateful to keep gays from being married and how you love the sinner but hate the sin is not new. It's all been tried before, and it nearly destroyed conservatism and will again if you insist on beating this dead horse. I'm a big fan and would be happy to debate this over email or phone. It's too important to be left alone. I agree that it is, he goes on and says more mean things about Father Schmitz, and he calls me hun. I do agree that this is too important to be left alone. That's why I'm talking about it. I must say I disagree with basically everything you've just said, but I'll explain why. I think you've missed the basis of the argument, of the disagreement here, where the conflict of visions really lies. To begin, you say that the discussion with Father Schmitz was not about gay marriage. It was explicitly about gay marriage. In particular, one question: what is marriage? Not who can get married, not who should have the right to get married, not who has the right to get married. Those questions come later. The crux of the conversation is around one question: what is marriage? Then subsequent questions follow. Does sexual difference have anything to do with marriage, maybe? Is there a categorical difference between men and women? Or are those differences just trivial and meaningless, and gender doesn't mean anything, and men and women are all exactly the same? And if there are real differences between men and women, perhaps might those differences play some role in marriage? Does marriage have something to do with the logical possibility of procreation? What is marriage? That's the question. It's the question that many people angrily do not want to answer. They want to skip right ahead to the rights question. But you have to answer the definition question first, but that's the hard one, and I think that's why advocates of redefining marriage try to skip it. You say that for decades and centuries, most people didn't think they knew a gay person. This seems to me an example of a modern prejudice. Modern pride. There's this modern prejudice to think that our generation discovered everything, including homosexuality, but we didn't. Ancient, medieval, modern literature is replete with references to gay sex and relationships. The phrase il modo italiano, the Italian way, was used to mean sodomy itself in the 16th century, maybe still today. I mean, Italians are very imaginative and creative. Homosexuality has been around a long time, and all ages have known about it and written about it. But the crux of our conversation really is not about homosexuality at all, and I think that's where people are missing this point. It really isn't about the moral questions or the practical questions of homosexuality, which mostly I don't care about. It was the nature of marriage, which is a question I do care about because it's quite a political question. You use the phrase, keep gays from being married. The question of our conversation is, what is marriage? Is it logically possible to keep someone from being married? The question has nothing to do with the morality per se. Whether you think that gay sex is a grave moral sin, or you think that it is the best thing since sliced bread, neither has anything to do with that question. Does sexual difference, sexual complementarity, the logical possibility of procreation, do those concepts have anything to do with what is marriage? You're of course right that people should never be hateful or discriminatory or mean or whatever toward gay people. That also has nothing to do with the question. That's a distraction and a diversion to avoid answering a simple question that might have an inconvenient answer. What is marriage? Proponents of redefining marriage or of undefining marriage, they find it convenient to skip that. They jump right ahead. We have to define our terms. If so elemental a question as what is marriage can only be met with anger and accusations of bigotry, a question that was easily answered until about 5 minutes ago. As Justice Kennedy now says, the only reason to oppose radically redefining or undefining marriage is irrational hatred of gays, irrational animus. If that's your immediate response, one must wonder whether the arguments for redefining or undefining marriage are really on sound logical footing, or if this is a matter of emotion running away with us and highlighting our unwillingness to answer and deal with simple but difficult, simple in their clarity, but difficult in their effect on society and on culture, questions that we have to deal with first before we can talk about rights.